First Man blasts off with one small step for Ryan Gosling, but it's one giant leap for Bradley Cooper, who makes his directorial debut with A Star is Born. Will he reach the stars, though, or fall trying? That and more on today's episode of The Real Review, so stay tuned.
Welcome to The Real Review.
Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. Today, I'm here with Joel Cunningham.
Oh, all right.
And who am I?
I'm here with Matt Rocket Jump Hay.
Rocket Jump Hay.
Yeah, I went with, because I was going Bradley Cooper, and then Rocket.
Raccoon?
Yeah, Rocket
Okay,
Raccoon.
I got you.
Rocket Jump. So it's just how my brain works, folks.
Okay, yeah. It's all connected somehow.
All connected somehow.
A lot of times we need to explain how it's connected.
Many times need to explain how it's connected for people.
It's okay.
They look at me, I can always tell, they look at me like, huh.
And mine was a direct quote from A Star is Born.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I haven't even seen the movie, but
Maybe it's time to let the old ways die.
yeah,
man.
maybe it is.
Maybe.
It is. Anyways, welcome to the show. This is The Real Review. Everybody, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for watching. Whatever you're doing, how you're doing it. Thanks for hanging out with us. Quick breakdown, kind of how the show works for everybody who's maybe joining us for the first time or may not be as familiar. The way that we do this is Joel's kind of more of analytical, critical, gets into the details, the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
Maybe
I love it.
That tends to kind of have like a more cynical or negative shine on it sometimes.
It can, because I'm always looking for flaws.
Right, exactly.
You
And
know?
where I'm always trying to overlook flaws. I'm very, very emotionally driven. Did I have a good time? Did it hit me in the feels? Was I able to relate to it? And then I can like overlook some things that maybe Joel might not be able to. But then we kind of combine that together, and that's The Real Review. That's what we do. And we're always learning on this magical journey of film that we are always embarking on.
It's magical journey of film.
Magical journey.
Sounds like something from like the 70s.
Exactly.
Like the Reading Rainbow guys.
Right. Reading Rainbow.
Magical
Anyways.
journey.
Yeah, exactly. And
It's more of an 80s thing. I don't know when.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was
80s,
a
90s.
long time ago.
There you go.
Anyways, so welcome to the show. That's what we do, and that's how we do it. And Joel, why don't you break down and tell people how they can get connected with us on the interwebs?
Skadoosh. Let's do it, Matt.
Skadoosh.
So we've got a couple ways to get connected. We have our website, which is realreviewmedia.com.
True
We
story.
also have our Facebook, which we post a ton of crud up there. Good crud, but crud nonetheless.
good crud.
Facebook.com/realreviewmedia. We would also love to get connected on Twitter or Instagram, which are both at Real Review Media. And finally, we'd love to get your thoughts, inputs, and perspectives on all the things we talk about and things we don't talk about. Specifically, things with film and media, though.
Yes.
So not much else. But, you know,
Yes.
send us what you like. realreviewmedia@gmail.com.
True
We'd
story.
love to hear from you, folks.
Do it.
There you
Do it.
go.
We would love to hear, and we would love to hear some insights. We would love to respond. We will respond. I guarantee it.
Yes,
in
we
some
will.
way, shape, or form.
Yes. So we're talking about two movies.
We're going to talk about two movies today.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
I can count, Matt.
I purposely, and I mentioned this off air, but I told Joel, I was like, don't tell me about your thoughts on this because I kind of want to be fresh in this moment to be able to like kind of go back and forth with you on this. I have a slight suspicion that we're going to vary
Yeah.
on this first movie, which is First Man, on kind
Right.
of what our thoughts were.
And so just to clarify, we're not talking about the 2017 First Man. I don't know if you remember
Was there a
that.
2017?
Yeah, there was one about like the 20,000 BC, 25 million BC or whatever, like guy. It was a very like flop, big
Really?
flop. Yeah. And then there's another film called The First Man, which came out in 19-something.
Really?
1990s.
There's also a TV
Yeah.
show called The First Man coming out. It's based off the same story.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Anyways, Sean Penn's in that one.
Oh, nice.
Interesting.
There's lots of First Men.
Yeah.
We're all firsting.
I don't know what's happening here, right, guys? And it's not a story about Adam and Eve.
No, this is
Okay.
an entirely different type of film.
So let's just break it down real quick. Synopsis is a look at the life of the astronaut Neil Armstrong and the legendary space mission that led him to become the first man to walk on the moon on July 20th, 1969. Directed by Damien Chazelle, written by Josh Singer, James R. Hansen, and there's a number of people that actually did get a chance to star in this movie. Most notably, the lovable Canadian himself, Ryan Gosling.
Oh, that little guy.
Also Claire Foy,
That little fun
Jason
nugget.
Clarke, Kyle Chandler, Corey Stoll, Patrick Fugit, Christopher Abbott, Karen Hines. a lot of people.
I just called him a fun nugget. I don't even know what that means.
A fun nugget.
Yeah, I felt like if I met Ryan Gosling, that's the term I would use for him.
Yeah, I don't know.
He doesn't. I'm not gonna lie, and this is outside of the film.
Okay.
I'm starting to get a little bit sick of the Ryan Gosling
Okay.
thing. My opinion of the film is one thing,
Sure.
but like it's just he's so flat.
So here's the thing. He kind of has a Ryan Gosling thing that he does in all of his movies.
Yeah.
I did a lot of research after this movie because I had one thought after watching the movie.
Yeah.
And I let it process for a day. And then I did some research on everything about this film, what's Hollywoodized, all this stuff, what's not real, what was portrayed inaccurately, all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have kind of a slightly different thought after doing my research.
Okay.
I didn't do any research going into it because I just have vague knowledge of the lunar landing, all that stuff. And one thing about this movie that I think actually works is Ryan Gosling's more stoic approach of Neil Armstrong, because that's what Neil Armstrong is actually known for.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I did the research foremost first or afterwards on that because I was like, he's very like, and he was one word that was always described Neil Armstrong was like he's very compartmentalized and like his very emotionally kind of blocked off, and that's what he was in this film.
Right. They portrayed it well.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, it works in this context.
Yeah.
But I know what you're talking about.
I caught on to it, and we'll get back to the main film, but during Blade Runner 2049, and again, it was one of those things. Well, yeah, he's a robot, so he should. But it was
spoiler alert.
Well, you figure that out in the first 5 minutes, and then you're like, is he? Is he not? So I don't know. I'm not spoiling
Inception?
anything. But it's the whole persona there, and it's difficult because I think the first film that he ever really stood out was that romance crud, not A Walk to Remember.
Love Actually?
No, the one with the what's her name and amnesia and all that stuff. And
oh, you're talking about
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Everybody.
The Notebook. Everybody
the
knows
Notebook.
that. Yeah.
There you go. He had a good personality in that film. Like he had highs and lows. And
Before that, I think of Remember the Titans.
Oh, okay.
He's
Yeah.
like, yeah. Oh, it's a good song, right? Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
But he's got a good personality, at least in the Notebook. And so it's like from then it was this slow progression of where he's at now, which is like straight-faced, stoic, and then moments of like unbridled rage.
Right,
you know?
right. Like Drive.
Yeah, Drive is a great example of that too. And it's so I'm just getting a little sick of the shtick.
I'm not. I think. Okay, so here's my thought on the movie. Let me just start with my overall thoughts.
Yeah.
First Man, I thought it was good when I first saw it. Did some research. I liked it more.
Okay.
Because I came to appreciate some of the details and some of the stuff that I didn't realize that was happening, and some of the stuff that a lot of it is actually very accurate to what happened.
Yeah.
Surprisingly so. I felt
There's
that
only
way.
one thing that I was a little bit like, I don't know.
Yeah, there is one thing that was. There's only one thing that was mentioned in that was Hollywoodized that probably didn't happen.
Yeah,
but
it had to do with the actual being on the moon.
Right,
and
right. Exactly.
All right, I
And
figured so.
Also, there's a lot of controversy with this movie about stuff. I don't want to talk about that later.
Yeah.
But I like this movie. I thought it was actually really well done. I did like, first of all, this movie, for the most part, looks like it was filmed like with old film. Like it had this like graininess to it.
Yeah.
And I leaned over because my wife went with me, and I was like, Kayla, this looks like it was filmed like with old film.
Yeah.
Like, and like it feels like it was made back in the day.
I didn't get a chance to look into that. That's actually a note that I had. The color grade, if nothing else.
Yeah.
If they didn't actually shoot it on film, it had a really cool old school color grade.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And then there was moments where they'd actually dip into like home footage.
Right.
And it really felt like, I was actually thinking like, wow, is this actual home footage, from that era?
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, this is them. So, yeah.
It's pretty cool. I thought that was really, really cool. I thought it was acted really well. I thought Claire Foy was great. I mean, her accent aside, I thought her English accent is a little weird sometimes.
Yeah.
And I thought so in Unsane as well.
Yeah.
I really like that movie, but her accent's a little weird at times. But for the most part, I thought she was fantastic. And the movie broke my heart right off the bat.
Yeah.
And that's part of the emotional side of me that it got me in the feels right away, and I think that grabbed me a little bit off the bat. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I can't handle this right now. And the movies, it's less, in my opinion, it's about the mission to the moon, but it is more about Neil and him making that journey and kind of his story through it.
Yeah.
It's not like just the mission,
right.
Where a lot of that stuff is really cool, and a lot of the way that it's filmed is really, really cool. Very intense. I liked a lot of the For the most part, I liked a lot of they do like, for the most, there's a lot of like really close-ups shots to convey the intensity. At times I thought it was overdone, especially when it was like just during dialogue, quiet moments. I thought it was like, okay, why are you that close on the dude's face right now? But for the most part, during all the action sequences, with the ships, the rockets, all that stuff was really, really cool. I felt like tense during those moments. I was like, oh man, this is, this is scary. Space is scary.
Or you actually feel like you're in the cockpit in a sense, or like you're part of the launch. And I loved that. I feel like I'm about to launch off here.
So like you see the altitude thing or whatever it is, and it's like going up, and it's not like a static shot of the dial going up or increasing. It's like you could barely make out the the numbers. It's like shaking violently.
Yeah.
And that just adds to the intensity. And I thought that was a really good choice.
There was a fairly large amount of longer takes.
Yeah.
Most films you have like maybe 2 or 3 seconds for a take, and then it'll switch to something. This one had a fair amount of takes that were like over 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And you would just kind of have that, and it helps to build tension,
right?
Because something's going to happen, there's going to be a break, something's going to move, and so I felt that was really effective.
Yeah.
Especially when you're like about to launch off into space.
Sure.
And like Neil Armstrong's not going to die.
Yeah.
Like everybody knows he goes to space and just walks on the moon, but still you're like, wow, this is really intense. What's about to happen?
I know.
Yeah.
And other than that, the visuals were really cool. I looked into how they made some of the visuals. They didn't do a lot of green screen work. They built a huge LED and put a bunch of images on it, and the actors use that, and they use that. So like when you see the Earth in the background, that's an LED image.
Oh wow!
Behind, like, of the Earth.
That's cool.
That's super cool.
That's neat. So
anyway,
they actually get to act like, wow, that's a real Earth.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's super, super cool. So very, very cool to see some of that stuff. I thought overall it was really, really well done. And again, a part of me leaving and doing the research, I have to really add it to it because I come to appreciate a lot of the stuff that happened in the movie.
Cool.
Any other thoughts? Just more on
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. At least when I was a kid, I actually wanted to be an astronaut.
Oh, really?
I was a huge, NASA geek.
Oh, man.
I'm not even kidding you. I had
What
like a little
happened, Joel?
flash from the past. Well, I'll tell you about that
Why
later.
aren't you in space?
I realized, I found out, I was going down that path, and I was, 6, 7 years old. And I was starting down that path of astronaut. And
astronaut
I had
path.
that moment that all, young astronauts find out.
Did you go to space camp?
No, I wanted to. I always did. There's this movie I remember with a kid about these kids that go to space camp and accidentally get launched.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw that.
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
This robot, this like AI robot accidentally launched them into space.
Oh my
it's like the
gosh.
most ridiculous film ever, but that was like my dream. I was like, even as a 7-year-old.
I want to go to space.
Exactly. But then I find out that, they launch like maybe like 4 people a year at most, and there's like thousands of applicants. So it's like, I'm never going. So I gave up on that dream.
Come on.
But I used to be a huge space geek, and I even watched this wearing my NASA t-shirt and everything. And, so it was
Joel, you're in the theater, you're like,
exactly, yeah.
Space.
Well, it was cool. It's a fun ride because I think, you read so much about it and you see so much of the old footage, and this was a new side of it in a way. It was a side of it where you really get the human element in a way, specifically with Neil's story.
Right.
I think what detracted from it, all the things that you're saying I liked as well. I really loved the way that they portrayed the action and the launches of the spaceships. I really loved that you kind of, in a sense, get this journey with Neil, and it's a more human story than it is like an event. There's some films that are more about like Apollo 13.
Right. There's a lot that reminded me of
film.
Apollo 13, by the way.
Yeah. And it put a new light even on Apollo 13 and what that meant, and that was much more about, again, an event.
This could be
place.
a prequel to that movie.
Right. And this one, it's more like the events are showing how they impact people, specifically Neil, but then additionally it shows Claire Foy, and I was glad that they brought in her story and gave you some elements there. I think what honestly detracted from it for me, and it sounds probably really bad, but like the whole dark sort of demon that was riding on Neil and the difficulty that he was facing because of something that happens at the beginning of the film, it felt, I understood it, but it felt really manipulative to me, which I'm just kind of like, okay, like I'm fine with making this about his process and the stress and the pressures and the negative things that are going on, the positive things that are going on, how it's affecting his family. But when you threw that in there at the beginning and I didn't really know much of anything going on, I don't know, it just really felt, it just felt manipulative to me. And so I had a hard time. I came back from that, but every time that story element came back in, I was a little bit like,
I didn't feel manipulated.
I know. We've talked about this, and it's just, I think, a difference of our opinion and how that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But, and I know it's based in reality. Some aspects of how that played out are for sure based on reality. But it just felt very like, well, we got to get you connected to this guy, Neil, really quick. So we're going to do this.
For me.
Yeah.
It works for me. I'm raising my hand.
Yeah. I actually felt personally like and this was this is not a choice I can make, but if they had played out the story of that a little bit more throughout the course of the film.
As opposed to right at the beginning.
Right. As opposed to just giving me everything. I felt like I understood why they did it linearly because it made it very simple to follow.
Yeah.
But there were some times I'm like, I kind of wish you were throwing some things around here, making it a little less linear.
Like Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Not exactly like Christopher Nolan, but throw some things around and kind of, because then it's like interesting and you can see like, oh, and it makes me connect with where the character's at because I have to figure it out as opposed to like, oh, well, this is that and this is that. So I don't know. I really liked the special effects they did. I think the production design was insanely good for this film. Every
really
single item and spaceship and astronaut,
just everything of the time too.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, even down to like the cars they're driving and like in the kitchen, in the cupboards with the food that they have in their pantries, like all that stuff. So I thought they did a great job with that. So I'm ranking them pretty high, but I want to hear what your thoughts are before I get there.
I don't have a lot of negatives. I will say that I feel like I had to overcome some issues because we didn't. Well, I have a newborn. We took it with us.
Yeah,
we took our newborn kiddo with us, and he was pretty much chill the whole time. But like I was stressed out because it was a full theater, dude.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, okay. I hope he doesn't wake up and start crying.
That's like a time bomb. There,
I don't
potentially.
I was like, I don't want to be that guy. You know?
Yeah.
But there was a good chunk of time that I actually had him and went off to the side, and like rocked him while I was watching the movie.
Yeah.
So it kind of took me out of the movie a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But for what I did, I really liked it. I would have liked to see a couple more things. I think there's not anything necessarily bad with this movie, but I would have liked to have seen a couple more things that I feel like it would have added to it. Was something one of the things being more Apollo 13-esque. And what I mean by that is in Apollo 13, here's the thing. At the beginning of First Man, they portray this, hey, we have to get from here to the moon, and we have all this time we got to do it, and we have to figure out all these things on how to do it and how to get there. I felt like in the movie, there wasn't a lot of portrayal in how they figured it out. Right. So in Apollo 13, they had this extended sequence of how they could use all the material in the LEM in order to create a CO2, oxygen, washer, whatever. Like that kind of stuff was really cool. I like that stuff in Apollo 13. I would have liked to see something more like technical, like how they overcame some stuff.
I would have loved that too. That would have been cool.
Yeah. Other than that, that's really the biggest thing.
Right. Again, the focus, I think the reason they didn't do that was because they were making it a more human story.
Exactly.
And focusing on the people. But I agree. That would have been very interesting to me.
Yeah.
To see how they figured out this aspect and that aspect, which then ties into when they have those failures, you've seen them struggle and process. Mm-hmm. So when they have those failures, it's less of a, oh, wow, this is really going to impact Neil.
Right. And
more of a, oh, wow, that's really upsetting because they've all worked so hard towards it.
The other side of it is I think that the fact that it is Neil's story, and not to say that anything happens, there's a lot of controversy with this movie about people wanting to boycott it because people are like, oh, they cut the planting of the American flag and stuff on the moon, and that was a big deal. It's not a big deal in the movie. It's really not. And and here's the thing. You see it happening. It's just not like a close-up on it happening. Yeah. 2, you see the American flag sitting right next to it, the ship on the moon. Yeah. 3, you see all kinds of American flags, not just throughout the movie in the beginning, but at the very end, there's a sense of American pride. I got all of that.
Yeah, I think to me, the controversy came there was people that were making a hubbub about not actually showing the scene. The real controversy came with Ryan Gosling's comments, which were so stupid, to be honest.
They were exactly. He misled, and the reason why he probably got away, well, he didn't get away with it. The reason why he said it's because he's Canadian,
right? He's Canadian, and I think he's just trying to be like uniting and bringing together. And the reason,
it's blown out of proportion,
right? His commentary was stupid. I think he should have just said like, "Look, this was an American achievement." it's in the film. It's just not a prominent aspect
Right.
because we're making this more about the people.
Exactly.
Specifically my character.
So the people I really feel like that are like boycotting this movie don't. It's very American. But even if you didn't get all the American flags, you see a lot of American flags in there, especially at the end.
Yeah.
Even if you didn't get all of those, it would still make sense that it's not really focusing on that. It's Neil's story. It's not about. The movie's not about an American achievement. It's about Neil and what he's going through. So it would feel awkward in the moment to maybe just be like,
right. It would have totally,
you know what I'm saying?
Totally moved it because again, it's about a person and not an event.
Right.
So they portrayed everything that's happening with Neil. So if you suddenly break into like, let's have this American Pride moment, it would have been odd. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm a huge American fan. You know, and I get it. So.
There's a big like emotional moment like at the very end too that happens while he's on the moon, which is probably not factual.
That's what I was saying. I don't think that's realistic.
But that was more about the point of the whole moment for him anyway.
Yeah.
It was weirdly like a closure scene.
Well,
in a
again,
sense.
that's where it felt kind of manipulative because it didn't really feel like that story was necessary to portray why and how he ended up going to the moon and doing what he did. That wasn't a driving force from what I could tell that really had him. If anything, that was like holding him back all the way through. And so it wasn't that because he's going to go. So just, again, I'm fine with it, but it just didn't really add anything to the story. It just felt kind of manipulative.
I gotcha.
And it detracted, ultimately. I think the only other weakness, was there anything?
No, that's it. That's all I got.
The only other detractor for me personally was the acting.
Really?
Yeah, I felt, again, Ryan Gosling was a bit too flat for me. Again, I understand why, but like I just needed a little bit more in a couple moments. Claire Foy was fine, but she wasn't like, to me, she didn't, nobody in this really was like, wow, best acting job ever. It was just kind of like, okay. That's just
she
me.
had a scene where she kind of like yells at Neil.
Yeah.
And I really like that scene.
Well, that was kind of their two sides. It's like you have Ryan Gosling who's like flat,
stoic,
and then stoic, and then every once in a while have a moment of like happiness or sadness, and then you have Claire Foy who's basically like angry, and then every once in a while she'll have a moment of like happiness or sadness, and that was kind of like their characters, and it's just very. It's like I wanted some, like I understand that they're trying to portray Neil the way that he was, but it's just like there's other character. I don't know.
Yeah, so
it wasn't amazing to me. It was okay.
Right. Yeah. Totally fine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna rate it first.
Okay.
And let's kind of see where you're at. I'm going pretty high. I thought it was a good movie, and I have a lot of respect for it. And honestly, guys, it's not the whole American flag thing is not a big deal. It's a very patriotic movie. 89.
89?
Yeah.
I'm actually giving it an 88. So
hey, cool.
I know you thought we were going to be very divergent for some reason,
not.
But
for some reason, I just had this weird vibe. But apparently, the vibe was wrong.
Yeah. No, the cinematography added a ton. I think. Well, that was the only other minor negative that I think detracted from it. Some of those long takes got a little bit like queasy inducing.
Oh, really?
And I understand why.
There's a lot of like
a lot of spins, a lot of like dark, and you can see like one pin of light kind of spin.
I did that. I closed my eyes a couple of times.
Yeah.
Also, if I were to put this in the negative category, there's a couple scenes where there's nothing but a ship in space, but no stars.
Yeah.
I was like, why aren't there any stars anywhere? I don't know what that was about. I don't know if that was an editing choice.
We hadn't discovered stars yet.
Exactly. Anyways, that's it, guys. That's on First Man. And if you guys check it out, let us know what you thought about it. All that fun stuff. Email us. Next, I want to get to a movie that I want to see, but I haven't seen it yet. But Joel saw it.
Yes.
And I want you to tell me all about it. And it is A Star is Born.
A Star is Born, Matt. This film that was actually released a week ago, and I finally got a chance to check it out. And just to clarify, I'm not talking about the 1937 version. I'm not talking about the 1954 version. I'm not talking about the 1976 version
Heyo.
or the 1973 version. I'm talking about the 2018 version.
Right, yes.
There's been so many different iterations.
Well, it's been 50 years almost. It's about time for an upgrade.
Yeah, there you go. There's been so many iterations of this story, and I think the first one that I actually personally had to see was the Barbra Streisand one that came out in 1976, and I think that's the first. So there's a couple different A Star is Born type films that don't really tie into this specific story. That was the first one, I believe, that I saw that really was this story.
I never seen any of them. So
okay.
Yeah.
the idea, the basic synopsis for this is a musician helps a young singer find
Did you say a
fame.
magician?
A magician. La, 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 yeah.
I
that
think you
helps
said
her.
a magician helps.
Did
I'm
I?
like, it sounded like a magician.
Oh, well, a musician. That's what I
Okay.
meant. A musician helps a young singer find fame, even as age and alcoholism sends his own career into a downward spiral. Directed, first time directing outing is Bradley Cooper.
Which is cool.
Yes, it stars Bradley Cooper as Jackson Maine, who's probably
Yeah.
one of our main protagonists, and then Lady Gaga as Allie, who's our other main protagonist.
Stephanie.
Yes, Stephanie. You have Sam Elliott as Bobby Maine. I don't know if his last name is actually the same. It's Bobby. He's Bradley Cooper's stepbrother in this. Andrew Dice Clay, Lorenzo Dave Chappelle, Rafi, Alec Baldwin, Ron Rifkin. You got a pretty good large swath of people that are in this film.
All right.
Rafi Gavron plays Rez Gavron, who's kind of this producer guy, a bit of a jerkish type person.
Oh, I got you.
Kind of. So I went into this film with the only perspective being what I'd seen in the Barbra Streisand one.
Okay.
Which honestly I had watched in preparation for having seen this one. And I didn't really like the Barbra Streisand one all that much.
Okay.
I think the reason that it's probably had legs in so many ways is Barbra Streisand's effect.
Right.
The music in it for the original one, I'm assuming at the time was really good, and it's like a timeless story.
Okay.
In a sense, it's a sad,
which is why it's been made over the last century several times.
Exactly. It's like one person's star rises as another's falls,
right?
And how those two collide and come together in such a beautiful cataclysmic negative way at times. So having that portrayal of it and not knowing what Bradley Cooper's directorial style was like, I was like kind of open to just whatever happens, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Cool.
I think there's a lot of good that was in this film. I wouldn't say that it's going to be one of my favorites of the year, by any stretch, and that had nothing to do with the overall story. It more just had to do with kind of the way that everything came together. There was a lot of good things.
Yeah.
A couple things that were on the verge of being great, but there was nothing that really ever got to that, awesome level for me. The biggest thing that I think was one of the knocked out of the park, Bradley Cooper himself.
Yeah.
His characterization of this character, Jackson, was really good. And he still kind of, looked Bradley Cooper-ish, obviously.
Yeah.
But in his portrayal of this guy, I really got a sense of, him having those dark inner demons and trying to just drink away that's the sadness and the pain.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed his characterization here. I think if anybody deserves a potential award for this, it would be him.
Cool.
I think that was a really good part of it. Additionally, I think the music was good.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie, but I have the soundtrack, and I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say there was any one song in particular that oh my goodness, I'm going to listen to this a ton.
Shallow?
Well, no. I
like
really
that
like
song.
the one sort of that he starts with, but they never actually kind of sing the whole way through. That maybe
it's time to do. Oh, yeah.
I really like that one. I don't know why, but it's just it's good. And but you really get a sense that these people are good musicians, and they're talented. And Lady Gaga, she did great with all the singing and the performance stuff. I didn't get. One of the problems I had with her was her character was just okay. Her acting in this was just okay. It wasn't awful. It did the job. She had this kind of story arc.
Okay.
This idea of why her character was struggling to become famous and be this amazing singer girl in the world of singing that didn't really connect with me as much as
it
with
has
the
to do with
original.
her looks, right?
Yeah,
because that's what they said in the trailer. She's
right.
Okay.
I get it. I talked to this with the person I was with. I get it.
Yeah.
That they're trying to portray that she's got these issues that have held her back and stuff, but it's difficult. And this is going to sound really ridiculous, but it's difficult because she is a really famous producer and singer in the real world.
Yeah.
So it's you're telling me that this person who is an actual really famous singer in the real world is struggling with this in this made up world. So it just kind of got rid of that realm of believability for me. If this was some unknown person I'd never met before, didn't have a singing career outside of this film, and they were struggling with, people just judging me because of my looks, and so I can't get any acting jobs, I would be okay, that might be true. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I gotcha. And here's the thing, and I think it's part of the reason why, because I know that Brad Cooper had told Lady Gaga that the big thing was that don't wear makeup and a lot of the stuff that they were gonna do.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you. The first time I saw the first couple times the Stars Born, I was like, "Oh, that looks kind of good." And I was like, "I wonder who that lady is."
Oh,
Like,
really?
I didn't even recognize her.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, this is," and then it's just like Lady. I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
I was like, "All right," but I think maybe there's some of that because I think most people, just in general, recognize her with a lot more in her outfits, what she's wearing, the craziness of her makeup, whatever she's doing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that created that separation. It doesn't sound like it did for you.
No. It didn't really. It's a minor thing, but
Okay.
it was just. It felt like they were trying to come up with a reason for why she wouldn't, because she is an amazing singer and
Yeah, she's
writer.
great, yeah.
So they were just trying to reach out to some lengths to find some reason why she wouldn't be successful, and that was the one they landed on. And
Yeah.
it just felt very simple, like,
Yeah.
oh, because she's not as attractive as some singers.
Right.
And I've worked in the realm of, I own a studio. I work with a lot of musicians, and you get all kinds of people. You get the really attractive ones that have no talent. You get the really attractive ones that do have talent. You get the unattractive ones that don't have talent, and the ones that do.
Yeah.
And there's, in an honest sense, there is really no real reason sometimes why some of these people become as successful as they are.
Yeah.
Because I think an attractiveness is subjective sometimes. There's aspects to this that I'm like, okay, it felt like they were reaching out for a reason.
Okay.
And it just felt kind of flat for me. And
Okay.
it disconnected me from the film a little time every time they brought that up. But that's a minor gripe.
Okay.
Cinematography was okay.
Okay.
There was some shots that were good. It was nothing like, even First Man, though, where
Yeah.
the shots, there was like even in the opening shot with, you can see the reflection of the earth on his eyes and it's on the horizon and it's just portraying all these potential elements. There was nothing like that in this film.
Yeah.
It really just felt like they did good camera work, but it was more of just in service to the story that they were telling versus having these like really interesting shots that portrayed things in a certain way.
Yeah.
I could go into detail there. I'm not going to.
Okay.
So yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it's not an uplifting film. Like you get through it and you're not feeling like, yeah, I'm going to go out there and become a star. So don't look at it that way. But I think it was good and it's worthwhile that they made it. I think there was like one minor gripe that I had about something that happens close to the very end of the film with specifically one of the characters interacting with another one.
Okay.
Then I'm like, man, I really like that was more of a personal thing.
Okay.
Like it was very realistic, but I'm like, man, I wish that guy had something.
Yeah.
Like, that guy got away with something, and I'm just like, really angry about
okay.
it.
Like injustice of some sort.
Exactly, yeah. And it was kind of funny because in the original film, Barbra Streisand kind of takes on. She goes and she becomes a star, and the fact that she's a star becomes more of like a butting of heads that she has.
Right.
In that film, and just the fact that
With
she's a
Chris
star.
Christopherson's character?
Yeah, in the
Okay.
original, and just that's the main butting
Yeah.
of heads issue there. But in this one, it was more the fact that it wasn't just that she was becoming a star; it was that she was literally almost in a way turning into like Britney Spears or like Lady Gaga or something. I'm
Like
gonna ruin that.
herself?
Yeah, exactly. But that was the joke to me. I'm like, it's like they're turning her into Lady Gaga,
Right. Huh.
Which was so weird to me.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so it was just kind of funny. It was
All
like,
right.
oh my gosh, as this film is going, they're turning her into herself,
Yeah.
and that became a point of contention, which was okay. So I'm gonna rate it.
Rate it.
Gonna give this one an 87.
Okay.
So it's actually really close to First Man.
So it's a good couple of movies
Yeah.
back to back.
Yeah, I mean both of them, and this is something that despite all the critiquing and
Yeah.
stuff that I do, they both elicited strong emotional reactions from me
Okay,
in
yeah.
different ways.
Gotcha.
You leave this film and be like, ooh, that
Yeah.
was pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And First Man, you're like, wow, that was just crazy. All the stuff that happened. And so yeah,
Nice,
I'm
man.
gonna stop talking.
It's awesome. All right. 87. Rocking it. I still want to see it. And I'm going to see it. I got to see that and Bad Times at the El Royale. It's on my list.
One of the things I didn't mention about First Man, going back to that real quick.
Rewind.
I didn't like all the shaky cam. That was the only
I
thing
thought it
didn't
was
like.
effective some of the time.
In the cockpit and like in the action sequences was great, but when they're like just sitting there talking to
Right.
each other, I was like,
I
what?
did notice that too. And that was part of, and it wasn't just shaky cam in those moments too. It was also, there was a lot of real close-ups.
Right.
I'm like, back up.
Well,
Back up a little bit.
Specifically, the shaky cam was a problem for me because it's such a modern day. Like that became popular
Right.
around like the 90s and the 2000s, and it's like you're showing this in a style that is like old school film,
Right.
but you're using modern day technique of shaky cam.
Mm.
So it was just really weird.
Yeah. No, I totally gotcha.
Yeah.
I can see how that'd be a thing. But yeah, that's it, guys. First Man and
Ew.
A Star is Born. Got
Ayo.
some good reviews on some good movies. This next weekend, we got some other stuff coming out. Halloween, that's going to be the scary one coming out this next week. And Yeah, let us know what you guys thought about it. Any of those movies, if you saw them. Stars Born. Do you have the soundtrack? Did Lady Gaga, did she distract you at all?
Lady Gaga.
Anything like that? Yeah, definitely let us know and email us. Again, you can reach us at realreviewmedia@gmail.com, facebook.com, and Twitter and Instagram at realreviewmedia, and youtube.com/therealreview. You can get connected with us all those ways on our website, realreviewmedia.com. So do that. Make it happen. Joel, anything else you'd like to add?
Nope.
Nope. Well, it's been real.
It's been real.